Hello, dear friends and listener of the Remix Ensemble. What you just heard, played by our pianist Jonathan Ayerst, was the theme of one of the most unusual and controversial works of the piano repertoire, the 33 Variations on a Waltz of Anton Diabelli by Ludwig van Beethoven. I'm Peter Rundel, the musical director of the Remix Ensemble, and we are here in Casa da Musica to talk about this piece and its transformation by the German composer-conductor Hans Zender, who decided in 210 to rewrite this work of Beethoven for a large ensemble. This version of Hans Zender, which he called 33 Variations on 33 Variations, will be performed by the Remix Ensemble in Casa da Musica on the 15th of September and again in the Elbphilharmonie Hamburg on the 22nd of September. It is important to understand that this version of Hans Zender is not a pure instrumentation of the original, but indeed what Hans Zender himself called a composed interpretation, which means a transformation of the original music with the means of today's musical language, or a very personal view and commentary of this composer on Beethoven's music. We will try to demonstrate and to discuss in this session this process of transcription, transformation, musical commentary, by giving some examples comparing the original with its contemporary translation. Let's come back for the moment to the theme of the Diabelli Variation. It was a kind of publicity stunt of the music publisher Anton Diabelli to give this waltz to a lot of composers of that time and to invite them to write variations on it. His idea was to publish the results of this challenge as a collection, a plan which was realized later, but without Beethoven's contribution. To Beethoven, it was clear that he didn't want to participate among other colleagues. Instead, he planned to write a full variation work on it, even despite the fact that he was rather occupied and stressed at that time with his finishing of the Missa Solemnis. As you have heard, it is a rather simple waltz. Its main characteristics are the Schleifer upbeats, a decorated ornament to the main note, the repetition of the chords, and the main interval of the fourth and fifth, which are also present in the dominating bass line. It is amazing for a variation theme that it consists mainly on rhythm and harmony. There is, in a strict sense, no melody. This obvious poverty makes the theme even more usable for all the transformations, and I think Beethoven recognized this potential, even if he was mocking himself in some letters about the simplicity of the theme. His ambition was to write the most adventurous metamorphosis of that waltz, exploring regions of expression and characters which were unheard until this time and still are able today to astonish the listeners through their modernity. It is already the first variation, which is, after that simple waltz theme, a shock. The same dotted rhythm upbeat to the main note is repeated 64 times, but not anymore in the form of a waltz in 3/4 bar. Now it is a march in 4/4 bar, alla marcia maestoso. if I hear this, I ask myself how this march must have sounded to the listener of Beethoven's time. Is it really a manifestation or celebration of political or military power? We have to remember that it was the time of restoration in Vienna. The ideals of the French Revolution were oppressed and seemed to be far away, and state censorship was imposed on all aspects of public and private life. So this march, with all its raw and insisting force, can be perceived as a musical picture of power, but a pompous and somewhat hollow one. Already in this first variation, Beethoven is striving the regions of the grotesque. So, what does Hans Zender in his relecture do with this march? He takes the march and the elements of the march, but in many different tempi, slower, quicker, fragmented. In a kind of montage, he puts these different layers above each other, creating a constant confusion of timing and movement. In addition, he gives the different layers of speed different tonalities, creating a polytonality with sharp dissonances between the layers. The march in his version now is failing in both unified direction, which is originally the purpose of a march, and unified harmony. This accumulates into a kind of screaming climax and then quickly breaks down into splinters of its initial glory. In variation number 6, which is perhaps a commentary of Beethoven to the ideal of the heroic, he turns the upbeat of the waltz into trills and breaks up the repeated chords of the theme into arpeggios downwards. Only with these two elements, he composes a free canon in the second half in contrary motion, which means that everything which was going up before is now going down and the other way around. This variation starts fortissimo allegro ma non troppo e serioso. The question for me is, what means the serioso, which means serious, in this context? It was said many times in commentaries, already by Beethoven contemporaries, that the Diabelli Variations are a work of humor. But what kind of humor? Is it occasionally even a sour humor about the loss of ideals? Anyway, for me, this kind of cockcrows upbeats combined with the academic contrapunctual technique of the canon alla ottava again are a parody. Beethoven in these works comes very close to the art of Spanish painter Francisco Goya in his Los Caprichos, a work which was actually created around that time and close to this kind of bitter humor. And to reach this level of humor, you have to take your subject rather serious. Hans Zender abandons in this variation completely the C major of Beethoven. Already his cockcrows arpeggios consists of 3 different keys. They sound intentionally wrong. In addition to Beethoven's material, he adds something new. The strings, winds, and later percussions try to destroy the canon texture by shooting holes into it. And at the end, they seemed to have succeeded, as the process is suddenly broken off and only the accordion and harp are able to continue in a short transition to the next variation. Well, this principle of fragmentation, which Hans Zender uses, is even more evident in Zender's treatment of Variation 9. Here, Beethoven reduces the DNA of the variation to 3 notes, with grace notes 4 notes, which are in a regular 4/4 pattern consistently repeated throughout the whole variation. Hans Zender takes this material and transfers it into a stormy landscape consisting of strings and percussion. Now we have the physical experience of the music torn apart by a storm. We hear only fragments, the rest is swallowed by the wind. Still, if you want, you can imagine a kind of continuity behind this audible surface. Variation 18 is a kind of sentimental dialogue, a timid game of question and counter-question, followed by an illusion of consensus in the tentative unison or counter-movement of both voices. Hans Zender distrusts the idyllic surface of this variation and shows through his unusual instrumentation, the harmonization, and the free tempo rubato, which means different speeds, the amount of hesitation and uncertainty of the two protagonists of that variation. The famous Variation 20 marks the midpoint of the piece's duration and the end of the second third in chronology. Dramaturgically, it is in tempo and character a kind of stillstand or resting point before the variations are continuing their last amazing journey towards the end. There are tons of musicologists' literature about only that variation trying to uncover the mystery of this music. Franz Liszt called it the Sphinxes. Alfred Brendel called it a Grenzüberschreitung, which means a border crossing, not clarifying which border he means, the ones of harmony or the ones of expression. Structurally, it is a variation about a bass line, which is imitated and harmonized in the upper voice. It consists of the familiar fourth, the interval of the fourth, followed by a changing note which comes from the Schläfer ornament of the theme. You play the left hand. Now the imitation of the right hand. And now we would like to listen to the whole Variation 20. Well, personally, I can't help to hear this variation as a meditation on death, a Grabgesang, a funeral song, as it occurs shortly later in music history with some music of the late Schubert. So maybe the mystery lies in crossing that border. But what a journey already from, if you remember, this gay and flippant waltz of the beginning until this point of no return. Well, Hans Zender leaves the harmony and structure of this variation untouched. Only the instrumentation, through constantly changing and shifting the colors and registers of the ensemble, makes this variation appear in a new but very somber light. With number 21, we are very clearly in the area of a farce, a musical caricature. Everything is now exaggerated. The repetitions of the theme are now in double tempo and prolonged, fortissimo. And the upbeat ornaments becomes a trill with a turn and octave jump. This is contrasted by a meno allegro, which changes the 4/4 into a 3/4 bar and is a kind of lamoyant, complaining answer to the brutal aggression of the first theme. For the listener, there is also confusion about the bar lines. It is not entirely clear if the piece starts with an upbeat or downbeat. In short, the world is upside down. Hans Zender uses all means of dissonance and extreme instrumentation to show the truly grimacing expressionistic character of the music. It is like you bump into someone familiar in a totally unexpected situation. What a coincidence! You recognize it. It's not the Giorno Faticar, the aria of Leporello from Mozart's Don Giovanni. It is a lookalike, a double, a doppelganger of Diabelli's theme. With it, it has in common the famous fourth and the fifth. You remember? That's it. And but also the Schuster flag, the harmonic sequence from bar 9 of the waltz. This is also there, this kind of transposition of a motive, a step up and a step up. Beethoven, of course, gives his personal commentary on this material. In the second half of the variation, he suddenly jumps from the ending of the first half, which is G major, to A flat major, then to E major, and then through constant and comic repetitions of the grace note Schleifer back to the tonic. Hans Zender, completely agreeing with the spirit of this lovingly humorous greeting of an old acquaintance, adds another quotation of Mozart's Don Giovanni to it. The famous memento of the commendatore, Don Giovanni a cena teco e son venuto, is played by the French horns. Of course, the main intervals of this theme are also the fourth and the fifth from our waltz. Dear listeners, it is not the time nor the opportunity to give you here a complete analysis of neither the Diabelli Variations of Beethoven nor the composed interpretation by Hans Zender. I hope that we managed to awaken your interest and curiosity to join us in our concert, either here in Casa da Musica or in Hamburg or in a live stream online from the concert in the Casa da Musica. If in addition we have succeeded to encourage you to listen to the original work of Beethoven as a preparation to our concert, we would be very happy. There are a lot of fascinating performances online. I especially would like to mention a lecture performance by William Kinderman, an amazing musicologist and pianist. You will be able to deepen your insight into this work by listening to it. It's easy to find on YouTube. At the end, you allow me a personal word. Hans Zender died last year. I had the privilege to know him and to benefit from his outstanding music making as a conductor and composer. I would like in this moment to express my infinite gratitude for having shared with him unforgettable and truly inspiring moments. He will always be the most inspiring example of a complete musician for me and an idol of mine. We would like to end this little lecture by Jonathan Ayerst playing the last variation, number 33. It is a lyrical minuetto moderato, which on one hand looks back with a smile to the style and time of Haydn and Mozart. On the other hand, quotates Beethoven's own music, namely the Arietta of Opus 111, which was already written at that time, and the Eroica Variations, Opus 35. These references to his own music are appearing in a kind of capriccio, a free improvisation-like passage before Beethoven finally says goodbye to his music and to us, the listeners. Thank you, Jonathan, for playing, and thank you, everybody, for your attention. See you hopefully soon in Casa da Musica or elsewhere with the Remix Ensemble.